Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Michael Walsh is the founder of Walsh Business Growth Institute, which has been going for over 30 years. He says a good way to grow your network is by referring people, then look to see who's referring you in return, and they're the ones to keep in your network. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me here.
Now, you're the president of Walsh Business Growth Institute, which has been going for 30 years, I believe, which is amazing. Congratulations. You're a business leader, you're a speaker, you're an author. What would you say is the secret of running a business for such a long time?
If I had to chalk it up to one thing, it's always keep listening. Listen to your changing and evolving needs of your clients and customers, because their needs do shift. And if I'm not with it, they don't need me. And if I am attentive to what's going on and how their needs change as the, economy changes and the environment changes, then I can continue to support them in meaningful ways.
Yeah. And 30 years is a long time to be in business, and obviously things will have changed a lot. So tell me about how the business got started in the first place.
Well, I started doing both personal planning as well as business planning for clients, because my undergrad's a double major in commerce and economics, and my MBA is in international business. And what I found was that, there's only so much tax you can save somebody. And if you actually get them into higher yield investments, those usually take higher risk. And as a result, you're in a situation where there's, people could lose money. But if you can actually support people in selling more, they continue to pay you more, they're happier, you're happier, and everything goes on. So I started with outsourced sales support and sales management support. And it grew from there based on just learning and understanding the different needs of clients in different situations and what I could do to support them.
Yeah. When you started, did you think that you would still be doing this 30 years down the line?
I did not look that far ahead. I was thinking, at the time I had a new baby coming, and it's like, how do we actually support the people now, and how do I attract more clients so that we can make sure we hit our numbers this year and next year? I mean, those are the things that I was thinking. I was not thinking 30 years ahead. I must admit.
So what were those early years like, and how are things different today?
Um, there's a lot of things that have changed dramatically in terms of technology and how people interact, based on the rise of the internet. Keep in mind that when I started, this was 1995.
Yeah.
The internet wasn't a big thing then. I mean, social media didn't exist and all
No.
that. But what I found was to be able to just listen to clients and understand what's really important to them, and where did they see impediments, and how could you support them past impediments with, based on just sort of a different perspective. Because when you're in anything, you can't see the whole game. I mean, if I'm in tennis, I can't see my feet while I'm hitting the ball. So acting as an outside set of eyes was quite helpful. So what I found was that it came actually pretty easily, because the focus was really on listening and understanding what would make a difference for people and seeing if I could support them in any way. And that just evolved from there.
Yeah. How many businesses do you think you've worked with now? It must be a big number.
Yeah, it's well over 1,000. I think we're probably about 1,400 or 1,500 at this point.
Yeah. And so who are your clients? What kinds of businesses do you work with? Is there a pattern to the people that you work with?
Well, sure. Service-based businesses, or businesses that have a strong service component. And these days, I've been spending far more time with service-based businesses that are based in the expertise of their people. So I mean, there's a big difference between, say, a college pro painters, which is big here in North America, where you get a bunch of students that go paint houses over a course of a summer to learn how to actually, have a job,
Yeah.
versus a master painting team that actually has like a 6-month waiting list because of the expertise of, the artwork they do to people's houses.
Yeah.
And so we focus on, whether it's professional services like architects, engineers, medical people, whether it's skilled trades, or whether it's people in training and development, learning and development. In fact, there's one of the clients that we've worked with is a client that's grown in the UK. We actually helped them back in 2010 to 2018 as they grew from under £500,000 to well over £7 million during that 8-year period. It was a training and development, an e-learning company called Sponge UK.
Oh, yes, I've heard of Sponge.
Hmm.
And actually, mentioning the UK, that was going to be my next question about where are your clients? I guess you can work for anyone anywhere, can you?
Well, that's true. Mostly in Canada, the United States, some in the UK, and a couple of different parts of Europe. We've had one client in South Africa, but that's it, only one client.
Yeah.
Um, and that was during COVID, so we didn't actually go there. I didn't go there to meet with them. Quite often what I'll do is a lot of the stuff is done by web call, but to go 2 or 3 times a year, it solidifies the relationships, and it makes the rest of the work a lot stronger.
Yeah, yeah. So just tell the listeners whereabouts in the world you are.
Right now I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Oh,
So on the west coast of Canada, just north of Seattle, Washington.
yeah. And that was interesting you say about actually meeting people in person, because I think especially since COVID, so much more business has gone online, hasn't it? But clearly you feel that makes a difference to actually go and be in the same room as someone.
Absolutely. Here's the thing, people, and it's interesting because as we help people grow their companies, one of the things they try to do is as a company grows, it outstrips its structures, and then it tries to sort of control its people. But, the truth is you can't control other people. But, between you and I don't control the relationship between you and you don't control the relationship
Mm.
between you and I. There's this thing called a relationship that sits between us. Now, we both influence it, but neither one of us controls it unless we try to control the other person. I find that by being there live, you really can connect at a whole different level and really nurture and support that thing called the relationship that sits between people, that actually just grows a much stronger bond, and it makes it really a lot easier to support each other.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's true, and it's kind of similar with networking, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Online networking is great, but there's still nothing quite like being in the same room as other people and speaking to them face to face.
I totally agree. In fact, what I actually, most of the things that I do when I'm supporting clients is we actually talk about, real life, like meeting people in real life, because it's really difficult to develop that connection and that relationship through online media. People claim to do it. It's just not as strong and not as powerful. And especially, I mean, if you're selling a small dollar item, it's one thing. You don't need as much of a relationship, but I got to tell you, that, if you're into larger products and services, it makes a much bigger difference if you meet people live,
Yeah,
because they get a sense of who you are and you
yeah,
get a sense of who they are.
yeah, yeah. So tell me a bit more about how you work with your clients and what you do for them, what you do with them, perhaps.
Well, at this point, we work with clients that are anywhere from 1 to 2 million in revenue to start, and anywhere up to 20 million to start. And what we do is we help them with sales, human resources, and the underlying structures that would actually support their growth. And um, there's a whole host of different aspects to that. I mean, if you got a little $4 or $5 million dollar or pound company, you're not in a situation that you can have 5 or 6 different consultants. You actually need, to be able to trust 1 or 2 people and to actually help you through the impediments to grow your company. What I find is that there's as many ways to grow a company as there are people. Everybody's got different skills and talents, but the problems are very similar. So there are problems that people routinely hit. And one of the things that I find is, I find that entrepreneurs are pretty savvy. If you can see a problem, you can usually solve it.
Mm.
If you can't see a problem, but you know it exists, again, you can usually solve it.
Hmm.
The ones that get us are the ones where you can't see, you have no idea they exist, even when they've got you in their grips. And those are the underlying issues that are there. So I spend a lot of my time with what are the underlying issues that stop business growth, and then how do you support people to, first of all, identify those, and then work through and past them, or work around them if you know they're coming.
Mm.
And so that's basically where I spend a good chunk of my time these days.
Yeah. So, what are some of the sort of common factors that inhibit a business's growth?
Well, there's basically two main ones. The first one is that at any time a business grows, it will outstrip its structures. I mean, what it takes to run a £1 million company is very different than what it takes to run a £5 million company. And so the structures and systems and processes you put in place at £1 million or approaching £1 million are very different from the ones you're going to need at 2 million or 5 million or beyond. So that's one of the things that happens. And many people know that that's there, or once they get caught in it, they go, wow, this no longer works for my people. The second thing that compounds that, though, is that you've actually got swelling ranks. You've got more people than you used to have.
Mm.
I might have had 10 people. Now I've got 18, and I'm in a situation where, it's a little harder to manage. And, as the entrepreneur, I may have gotten in business because of a particular expertise, but, I'm not an expert in managing other people.
Mm.
And so what I do is I pick the person who's seems to be the best person to do their job. I trust them, and I get them to manage others because I figure they know the job. They can actually help others with the job. But of course, being a high-level individual contributor is very different than being somebody who manages individual
Yeah.
contributors. They're just completely different skill sets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at what point do businesses tend to bring you in, and how do they know that they need you?
Um, well, it's interesting because the people we work with are people that are already good at what they do at their current size, but they really want more and they're not quite sure how to get there. I've seen a lot of people that go, I'm just not very good at business. Well, that's not true. They just haven't learned how. So people contact us when they, quite often we're brought by referral, or if somebody's read one of my books, or if we've actually done a speaking gig where they can actually look at and understand access to different things that they never realized was possible. So if we talk about something and we give people access to a different perspective, they're in a situation where they go, oh, hang on. Like, for example, with management, um, you know, people think that managers are accountable for just a bigger result than the individual contributors. And as bosses, we want the managers to bring that in. But if I was an individual contributor, I was accountable for my result. Well, as a manager, your job is actually to provoke the thinking of your people so that they can work through the issues
Mm.
themselves. If you're just telling them what to do, people feel like cogs in a system, and they don't like that. And
Mm.
as you grow, that starts to fracture the culture of the company. And so the best individual contributor doesn't make the best manager.
Mm.
And when people see, oh, maybe there is a different way to deal with my managers, or I need to maybe teach them how to actually listen and tap the power of each individual, that when people see those types of perspectives and things, they go, maybe I could use a little bit of outside help,
Mm.
you know?
And what kind of results do people get once they are working with you?
Well, for example, with Sponge, it went from 400,000 to 2 million in 4 years. And then, in fact, I wrote a book where it was just about the first half of their journey. And with Louise Pasterfield, the managing director at the time, and then I helped her grow the thing to 7.3 million in the next 4 years before she actually sold it to a PE firm. So 8 years, 400,000 to 7.3 million. Construction management firm going from 10 million to 40 million in 2 years. I mean, what you find is that if you can actually help people get out from under the impediments that stop them, the sky's the limit.
Mm.
So it really depends on the goals of each party. There's people that we take from 1 to 5 million, in a 3 or 4 year period. You need to put the foundation pieces in place and build things up. But it really does depend on the goals.
Yeah. So how many clients would you typically be working with at any one time?
Between 15 and 20.
And how long do they work with you for? Is there a set amount of time? Does it just really depend on the business?
Well, it does depend on the business. The minimum we work with people for, like we have a process of doing a test drive with them, but assuming that we agree that there's common ground and we can really help them or we can help them move the needle, we start with a minimum of 4 months. But on average, we work with people for maybe 2 to 3 years. And there's people that there's one client that I'm seeing later this afternoon, my time, it's morning here. Uh, the, they started with me in 2010 as
Mm.
a little $4 million company. They're now north of 20 million, and we're looking at worldwide thought leader strategies for the firm. And so I'm working directly with the managing partner on, how to expand their reach. And so that's a longer
Yeah.
mandate, obviously. But as they continue, as long as they want to grow, they'll continue to hit impediments. That's when we're useful. Once we stabilize the growth, then there's really no need for us beyond that. It's just that when people want to continue to grow, that's when they find us useful.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that you've written some books. So tell me about those. I think 3 books you've written. Is that right?
Yes. The first one I wrote in 2009, published in 2010. Um, and that was really how to take a little baby business and get your first million with it, sort of thing. And that was called Business Growth by Design. And it's still ticking away out there. In 2014, I sat down again with Louise, and we actually wrote a book about it called Thinking Big is Not Enough, and that was moving past the myths and misconceptions that stop business growth. And so in that book, we actually basically talked about what were the things that she was surprised by that she really didn't realize were stopping her.
Mm.
And so, again, you uncover impediments, it works really well. The one that I just released in May is called Freedom by Design, the Established Business Owner's Guide to Grow, Make an Impact, and Find the Joy Again. And it's for people that are anywhere from 1 to 2 million at the low end up to about 20 million. And it talks about what are the danger zones, as somebody approaches 2 million, as they get just past 5 million, as they approach 10 million. And in this chasm between 12 million and 20 million, there's 4 distinct times when underlying issues that people don't realize exist just get business owners. And the reason they don't realize it is because when you're outstripping your structures, you're always outstripping different types of structures, so you don't realize that you're going through a similar thing. That's always combined with a situation where the numbers of people are very different at the different sizes. And because the numbers of people are different at different sizes, again, they always look different. So people don't realize that they're stuck in these impediments.
Mm. So it's really useful, isn't it, to have an outside pair of eyes on your business? I think no matter how big or small your business is, it's always good to have someone who's on the outside looking in because they see things that you don't, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting because a lot of people think, well, if I get a business coach or a business consultant or somebody to support me, I mustn't be doing things right. And it's like, well, I don't know about that. If you look at the best sports athletes, they all pay for multiple coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, in hockey, when we do a lot of hockey here in Canada, you've got a skating coach, you've got a nutrition coach, you've got a strength coach, and the people that are in the top 10% of the league all have their own individual coaches and support structures.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that can do so much better with that level of outside set of eyes because the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
But even if somebody's more junior, what they find is, again, an outside set of eyes can be invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. So you must have a vast network by now. So tell me something about how you have grown your network and how you maintain that network.
Well, I found it interesting. One of the things that I found was when we were doing personal planning and corporate planning, I ran into a strategy that insurance people, started with, and they'd say, go get a list of 100 people that you know, and talk to them about your services, and then see if you can get referrals from them. And it's like, well, here's the thing we find is that if you go do that and you hit up all your friends, trying to sell them insurance, what you have is 100 former friends, or you'll have 96 former friends and 4 people that begrudgingly bought something, but they really start to avoid your call. So instead of that, what we said is, the idea of identifying a bunch of people really works well. So what we did was we actually built a different strategy, and as I built it, this worked. And I was looking at meeting people. First thing I did was I did list a whole bunch of people that I know, but not to sell them anything. The second thing I did was I said, what are a bunch of industries and types of professions that exist, and I listed a bunch of those. And of course, back in 1995, we still had yellow pages. So if you go through the yellow pages, you'd find there's like thousands of different professions and trades and that. And so what I did was when I'd go to a networking event, I'd listen for what would make a difference for the person. Who's somebody I could refer to them.
Yeah.
And then when they asked me, well, how can I help you? Instead of sitting there and trying to pitch for business or anything, I hated networking events. I just did not like them at all because I didn't know what to do. I don't sit there pitching myself. I hate it when people pitch me, so I didn't want to pitch anybody else either. But what I did do is I'd say, I'm actually building my network, and I noticed that I don't have a person that does automobile leases or equipment leases, in a business environment. Do you know anybody? And they're like, yeah, happy to help. So then what I did was I'd get the names of people to help fill out my network. And then what I'd do is I'd meet with the person and I'd say, I was referred to you by this person now, and they spoke very highly of you. Are you interested in gaining referrals from somebody like me if we actually, if I run into somebody that could use your services? And they're like, well, sure. Okay, well, here's the thing. You and I don't know each other. If you're willing to actually give me a couple of references so I can just sort of check you out. And because if somebody asked me and said, well, have you worked with the person? I say, I haven't worked with them, but I did check them out and I found nothing but great things. And I said, sure, no problem. You can check me out. So I checked them out. And then if what I found is if that came up and somebody said, I'm looking at somebody to help financing equipment. So, well, actually, I've just checked out a leasing guy that does equipment leases. Is that somebody that would help you? Well, sure. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I do a mutual introduction between you and Mark, whoever, let's pretend it's Mark, and you can take care of him, and I'll let Mark know that to expect your call. And you do that, sure, great. So then I'd also do the mutual introduction, make sure Mark knew that I was actually referring him, and then just continue to do that. But then I'd also, instead of asking for anything from Mark, because you start asking for stuff in return, it feels more transactional than just based on building a network for contribution. What I did instead was I just watched and saw who made an effort to refer me back and who didn't.
Yeah.
And the people, so I'd continue to build my network. And if Mark got 6 or 7 different referrals from me, they don't always go in. But if I gave him 6 or 7 referrals, he knows about all 6 or 7, and maybe 2 or 3 of them, actually used his services. And I haven't heard anything but crickets from Mark. All of a sudden, I'm also looking for another equipment leasing person. I don't have to go deal with Mark. I can just sort of quietly continue to expand my network. And if there's somebody that needs the specifics that Mark gives in his particular, specialty, then sure, I'd still refer him. But if there's somebody else that also does equipment leasing that's also more of a giver, then you know what? That person will just naturally give back. And so all I have to do is focus on expanding the network and just contributing to people. And what I found is that, over the course of about a year to a year and a half, if I found that if I was willing to put that effort in, I actually would continue to get results that were really cool. And that's literally how I not only built the initial network, but I've continued to network and support people as I go. And as a result, what I find is that there's lots of people that are willing to share me as a good thing. With this latest book, normally my understanding is when a new book comes out, the average person gets like 6 reviews. Mm-hmm. Okay, which means yes, they have a family. Okay, but we've got 30 some odd in Canada, another 20 some odd in the U.S., and I think we even have 5 or 6 Amazon referrals in the UK right now. Good. Even though I haven't been back there for a while, So it's interesting to see, and people, oh, this is one of Michael's books. Oh, excellent, yeah, absolutely, And I've had people call me, hi, I was told that I have to talk to you, and I was told I need to read your book. Okay, fine, and we'll give them a copy or whatever, and on me. It's so, those are the things that just naturally happen if what you can do is just look at what is it that you can contribute. And the
Yeah.
thing I found for me, I hate trying to pitch anybody. I don't want to actually convince anybody anything. So if I could set up an environment where all I have to do is contribute to other people, and some people will contribute back, I'm in great shape.
Yeah. Yeah. And is networking something that you well, you said that you didn't enjoy it to start with. Do you enjoy it more now? Has it got easier?
Well, when I go to a networking event, which I got to tell you, I don't go to that many, but when I do go to one, it really is. I don't think about getting anything from that event. All I want to do is just get to know people and understand who they are and stuff, you know. Um, so I have a kind of a very different approach.
Mm.
A lot of people will look to connect with 20 or 30 people and get a bunch of business cards, and then they send them stuff about their their company. What I find is, what? I just want to go meet 2 or 3 people that are really interesting people,
Yeah.
and I just get to know them as people. And then if I send a follow-up, the follow-up is, hi Luz, it was great, meeting you. I love the conversation you had about this thing here. I ran across this that, in light of the conversation we had, I thought that you might find that interesting. Look forward to connecting next time we do. And then you're like, oh, Michael sent me that. Well, that's kind of interesting. I really appreciate that. Next thing you know, you were actually developing a relationship,
Yeah.
human to human, rather than some transactional thing, which people think they're there to do, but that's the slowest way to get anything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. A
so
much
that's
nicer way of doing things, isn't it?
absolutely.
My final question, Michael, is if
Yes.
people do want to connect with you and become part of your network, what is the best place for them to find you?
Well, you can either find me on LinkedIn at Michael Walsh on LinkedIn, and if there's more than one Michael Walsh in the world, so just type in Michael Walsh Vancouver and I'll come up, or just go to our website, which is walshbusinessgrowth.com, and that's an easy way to connect with us as well.
Perfect. And that website address will also be in the show notes too, so people can get direct to you from there. Well, thank you very much for being my guest. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.